Hello, Alekos, and thank you for joining Shoes in Bitcoin.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
It's a huge pleasure having you with me today and talking about your experience. So, Alekos, the first thing I did today for preparing for this conversation with you actually is to open GitHub. I'm not sure that all of my the majority of my audience is aware what does GitHub mean, but maybe you can tell me. Everybody talks about open source projects. Is this the place where we can find them?
Yeah, so basically GitHub is kind of a social network in a way, mostly used by developers, people who write code. It's just a really cool place where you can publish your code and you have this nice web interface to interact with it because I mean, it's not the only way possible to share code with others, but usually like before GitHub was around, people used emails a lot. So like if you wanted to make a contribution to a project, you would send an email either to the maintainer of the project or maybe to a mailing list, which is basically just a bunch of email. Like you send an email to this and it will get forwarded to a lot of people. But I mean, personally, I didn't really like that kind of approach. I think, I mean, emails are, I don't know, I think emails are good for writing like letters, I guess, not so much for sharing code with each other because it gets very messy even with reviewing code. Like when somebody makes maybe a contribution to a project, the maintainer of the project will review the code, will maybe make some comments and ask to make a few changes, and all of that doing it via email. Maybe just because I'm not used to it, but I really don't like the user experience of that. So it's nice to have GitHub, for instance. There are also some other alternatives, but GitHub is the most popular one. Yeah, it just makes it much easier to do our job, I guess.
Very good, but I have a question. Is this a centralized platform? I mean, all these contributions and updates and things that you're providing as input on this platform, can something happen to them, or it's backed up in there is redundancy? I don't know how to. Can we lose the information?
It is.
This is my question.
Okay, so it's kind of a yes and no. It depends. So basically GitHub is kind of a nice interface for the Git protocol, and the Git protocol is what we actually use to share the code. So the Git protocol is just kind of an open protocol. It doesn't have any centralized server or anything. Basically, when you have usually they're called repositories, which is basically a folder with code inside of it with many files that contain code. So you have this Git repository, and you can, using the Git protocol, you can send it to somebody else, and you can do all of that in a kind of a decentralized fashion. But usually it's more convenient to have a single place where we all push our code. So like the protocol itself that it's being used to share the code, it's not centralized, but the platform that we use is GitHub in particular. But I mean, the worst that it can happen is that GitHub maybe shuts down a project, but the code itself doesn't disappear. So the code can be backed up. Like I have a copy of the code on my own computer, and everybody who contributes to the project usually has a copy on his own computer. I also host myself basically kind of a more simple version of GitHub. It's on my website. It's at git.afilini.com. So for instance, this is another way. I don't think it's linked here. You have to go to the specific URL. Okay. But yeah, I mean, the point is the code itself, if GitHub shuts down tomorrow or if GitHub bans somebody, the code itself is not going to disappear. Maybe the conversation, the discussions, they might disappear, but it's not like the end of the world. Also, usually when we contribute code, we sign the code with our own personal key. So even if GitHub is hosting the platform itself, they can't like inject malicious code because they would have to produce a fake signature. And they don't have our keys. So basically, GitHub is just kind of an exchange. It's like messaging through Signal, and if Signal disappears, you can just move to another app. It's not. I mean, it can be inconvenient, but it's not the end of the world. So they don't have all that much power on the projects that use it.
Sorry, is this connected with PGP or no?
Yeah, PGP is like the signing protocol that it's used.
Okay.
It's used to sign emails, but also to sign Git code, basically.
Okay, thank you, Alekos, for this information. It's really useful to know. No, I was curious to know about it. So when I'm looking at your profile on GitHub, so having in mind you're working only on open source based projects, does it mean that all your job is here, or also you have other projects which you're not sharing on GitHub?
No, most of it's here. There are I always have some other projects going on, but it's usually just like random prototypes. And if they end up working, they usually end up here on GitHub as well. So if they're not here yet, it's because maybe I'm still like prototyping on them. I'm not sure if they're gonna work. I'm not sure how to do stuff. But yeah, eventually, if I think something can work, eventually it will make it on my GitHub.
Okay, thank you. And you are developing since how long? I see you're very active. So if I'm looking at the intensity of the color, the green color here, you're participating and contributing a lot. Since how long are you coding, and which was the first language you've been introduced to, aside from Italian? Okay. Joking. Okay.
Yeah, so I started coding, I think, more than 10 years ago now, probably 2011 or something like that. I was still in school. I think I was probably like 12, and I'm 22 now. So yeah, let's say 10 years that I've been doing this stuff. Initially, I started with PHP. It's a language that is used to make websites because I don't know, I just liked web stuff. Also, maybe a few years back they were very popular, so everything was moving to the internet and then to the web stuff. I don't think there are many projects from that time on my GitHub. I think I deleted most of them because they were shit. Obviously, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just learning. So yeah, I think I started, let's say 10 years ago, but like the real stuff, that's probably more like 5 years ago, and the Bitcoin stuff, for 3 or 4 years.
Right. And by the way, how this, you said you were 12 years old when you have started coding. Who has introduced you to technology, or it was something natural from your end that happened?
Nobody really introduced me. I just, I always like to play with the computer, even when I was a kid. So initially it was like maybe video games and things like that. But after a while, I realized I don't know, I was getting bored with video games. I liked more to do, I don't know, like to modify my computer, change components, things like that. I wanted to know more about how things worked. And I don't know how, but for some reason with a friend of mine, we started with this thing that we basically we have this idea that we wanted to make a website. So he didn't really like computer stuff. So I got in charge of actually building it. So we had this idea together, and I was the one who had to actually build it. And so I just like started learning it because of that. Also, this friend of mine, he has an older brother who at the time was going to a technical high school, basically. And so I remember like when I went playing with him at his place, I would see his older brother studying like informatics, computer science stuff. And so I also started, I kind of saw how that path was, and I really liked it. And I started, basically, I decided to start learning it on my own before I got to high school, so that I would have, I don't know, like an advantage or something. I just wanted to, I was impatient, basically. I really wanted to learn the stuff, even if it was maybe like 2 or 3 years ahead. So I just started by myself.
Great. Great, Aleko. So this is something you were born to do, actually. And
Yeah, I think so.
you're very lucky that you have recognized it, acknowledged it, and you have already achieved lots of things in the Bitcoin world. So let me switch into our main topic today, because shoes in Bitcoin, we talk only about Bitcoin. I see on GitHub there are several, actually 4 projects you are associated with, but maybe before that, if you wish to tell me, how did you join that community, that industry? How did you? It's technology, it's natural, so that you're curious, you were curious and started looking for accommodating knowledge on the topic. However, how did you start your first project into Bitcoin?
Um, I okay, I don't remember how. So there is a bit of a gap. I don't remember the exact like moment when I started. The first kind of project I made, actually initially I was a bit of a shitcoiner, or at
I
least I
didn't
didn't know
know.
Bitcoin and everything.
This is news
Uh,
to me. Very big news.
Kind of. I mean, I think I had a good reason to be a shitcoiner. Basically, the first project I made was a miner in the browser. So the idea was people don't like ads in the website, but ads are necessary for website owners to earn a revenue. And so we can remove the ads and replace them with a miner, basically in the browser. So the owner of the website will still get some money from the crypto that are mined. And actually, I originally wanted to do it with Bitcoin, but obviously Bitcoin uses a mining algorithm that is very optimized. Basically, you need specialized hardware to be competitive. And so since I really wanted to do that kind of project, I had to move to another cryptocurrency, which was Monero, because Monero has a different type of proof of work that I mean, you're still not super competitive, but more than you would be with Bitcoin.
It's a
So I
privacy
think
coin, right? Monero, if I'm not.
sorry.
It's a privacy coin.
Yeah, so it is kind of a privacy coin, but the reason why I chose that coin for my project specifically was just for the mining algorithm that they were using.
Okay.
So that was kind of my first project. Again, I was learning everything by myself, so I was just discovering, reading stuff online. And I read that Monero had a different proof of work that was more suited for what I was doing, and so I just chose this one. So this was kind of the first project I did. I didn't like Monero or Bitcoin or anything specifically. I just wanted to get my project done, and Monero was the best choice for that project. Then after that, I just kind of randomly stumbled upon Gianluca, who you know very well. I think we were like at the train station or something like that. It was very random. And we had worked together previously while I was still in school. We worked together on basically on a summer, I think. 1 year during the summer break, I went to work in a company, and Gianluca was working there as well. And so we just kind of randomly started talking, and he told me that he was working in a Bitcoin company, which was BHB Network at that time. And I was at the time I was kind of looking for a job, so I didn't know. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to university. Actually, I didn't want to go to university, but I didn't have any other alternatives, so I was still kind of deciding. And so I decided to try to have a chat with the people at BHP Network and see if they would offer me a job, if I would like the job. And so yeah, and so this is where I started actually like learning a lot more about Bitcoin and everything. And yeah, that was my first kind of job in this world.
Great. And now, I mean, you said first you had to do your project. That's why you were looking at Monero, and you didn't like none of these from the. I mean, when you say you didn't like them, you mean just because you were not very well into them and you didn't know much about them? My question was more about now, do you like Bitcoin? Because you did lots of things on Bitcoin. I assume you love Bitcoin, but who knows?
Yeah, no, I mean, what I was trying to say is that the first, like this first project that I did on cryptocurrency in general, I wasn't really like using cryptocurrencies for what they have been built for. Like now, I really appreciate Bitcoin. I really appreciate privacy, censorship resistance, and not depending on anybody, be your own bank and everything. At that time, when I was doing that project, I didn't know any of that. I just thought it was cool that you could produce this thing just by making computation, basically. So so this is what I was trying to say. Now I obviously really appreciate that. I really like. I think I spend most of my time thinking about Bitcoin, about projects on Bitcoin, about all those stuff.
That's great, and you are very much appreciated in this environment. So you have also, after a BHP network, you have also worked for Blockstream for a while. What kind of projects you've been? Because I don't know, I see the other guys at Blockstream, they're taking over specific products from their portfolio, like Lightning, Liquid. And what was your domain of expertise, or you were more generic profile, knowing and understanding from everything?
No, I was working mostly. I was working in a green team, so it was mostly the green apps, mobile apps, the green like library. Yes, that was mostly it. I also kind of helped with the initial architecture for Jade, the Alter wallet. It was released after I left Blockstream, but obviously, I mean, it takes a lot of time to develop a project and release it. So the initial like development, I was there and I was helping out on that as well. So yeah, it was mostly this. I would have loved to do some lighting stuff, but we just basically never had the chance to work on it. I started doing green stuff, and then I just kept going with that.
Right, and after that, you have achieved kind of a fund. You've been appraised with a fund due to your strong knowledge and capabilities. So you've been provided with donations for developing on specific codes. Could you please give me more details about this? When did happen? This happened and how? This is, I mean, it was actually on Twitter. There was a storm. This announcement.
So there was actually another step in between. So when I left Blockstream, I started working kind of part time on BDK on my project, and at the time I was being funded by Bitfinex. So the original like supporter of BDK was Bitfinex. I was doing a little bit of BDK, a little bit of other stuff that Bitfinex needed. So this was kind of the deal. So I will do some stuff that you need, but also I will take some time to work on my own project, because initially this was just kind of a side project. It was nothing serious or anything. Then yeah, over time the project grew. BDK grew a lot. A few other people started helping me out. So specifically it was Steve Myers, who had a grant from Square Crypto to build something that was very similar to BDK. And basically he realized that he was doing the same thing that I had already done. It was like duplicating my own work, which wasn't like very efficient. So he contacted me, he basically asked me if we could join forces and work together on a single project instead of basically doing two projects very similar with each other. So over time, Steve came, then also Ricardo got a grant again from Square Crypto to help me out. So the project kind of started growing, and for that reason, I started looking for funding that would allow me to work full time on that project, because I was still kind of like part time. I was still doing. I was still spending some of my time on other stuff, but I really wanted to focus just on BDK. And so this is where Brink comes in. So Brink gave me a grant to work full time on BDK. So yeah, this is kind of the story of the project. It wasn't immediately. I wasn't immediately awarded a grant for it because also the project was very small. So nobody really cared for it. It took some time, but eventually I got there.
Right. And BDK is I mean, my technical literacy is very, very low. However, my understanding is it's like that's what, for example, Leonardo Comandini made for Liquid to support developers. Like he has this Liquid X, this exchange with particular libraries which are supporting other developers to implement the technology. So is the Bitcoin Dev something like that, but specifically for wallets? Or
yes, it's basically like a library that other developers can use, and they can make more or less any kind of Bitcoin project, or like if you're making a project that somehow requires to maybe like create transactions in a specific way, or sign transaction, or interact with the Bitcoin network, most of those use cases should be covered by BDK. So basically the idea is that there are a lot of other Bitcoin libraries that try to do not really something similar, but there are a lot of libraries that developers can use. The main difference is that BDK tries to be very generalized, which is something other libraries don't really do that much. So the problem with the other libraries is that maybe there is one that is very good at one specific thing that you need, but then if you want to change this thing, you need to also change the library. You need to find another one that is good for the other thing you want to build, and if you want to make a change again, you have to. So they're very, not very, but they are mostly specialized, or sometimes they are very technical. So the other generalized libraries, they're generalized in the sense that you have to do a lot of the complexity yourself. So yeah, you can do everything, but you have to do it yourself, which is not very easy, especially for developers that are just like starting out. So the idea for BDK is to be generalized in a way that like every developer can use it for most use cases, but at the same time be very easy to use, like specialized library that exists today. So this is kind of the goal we have. We want to make something that everybody can use to build. I don't want to say any kind of project, but most kind of Bitcoin project.
Right, and this is very, very good. And because you are providing these developers who are just stepping in right now in this world, you're just facilitating them with this project to get upskilled faster, to understand the technology in faster way.
Yeah.
Having said that, I have the following question to you. If you have a person who is, yeah, let's say 16 years old, who, let's say, knows something about technology, but not that much, has never learned a programming language, that doesn't have this basic technical literacy that someone needs to have in order to start developing on Bitcoin. But if we have such person who wants to be trained, to be educated from the very beginning, including the primary language that is a must in order to build traditional on Bitcoin, how much time do you think it's required for a person to contribute, to start contributing? For example, to be able to build or to contribute in a team who are building a wallet?
Um, I think it kind of depends on like how this person wants to contribute. I think I don't know. I think maybe with like 2 or 3 months of training, you can start doing something. The problem is that with so little time, you will probably not have a very like in-depth understanding of a lot of basically a lot of the details. Like maybe you have a good overview of how things work, and you can make something work, but you don't really have the ability to understand complex stuff because that takes a lot of time and a lot of experience. So I guess it depends. Like if you just wanna help a team in some way, maybe like you study for 3 months. Maybe 3 months is a bit optimistic, but you study for like 6 months, and then you can help them out a little bit on some smaller stuff. If you want to get like at the top of the team, meaning like the person that leads the team, that makes the complex decisions, that probably takes a bit longer. Also because in Bitcoin we deal with critical pieces of code. I think like if you make a mistake when you're coding a website, I mean, it depends on what this website is doing, but let's say you are making like an e-commerce website and you have a bug. Worst case, maybe the product will not show up, or the product will have the wrong picture, and nothing really happens. With Bitcoin, if you make a mistake, people lose money, and there's no way to refund them or anything. We can't reverse transactions. So I think it really takes a lot of experience to work on Bitcoin because you can't afford to make mistakes, basically. So yeah, I guess it depends. Maybe after a few months, you can probably start doing some little things. You've learned how to code. You can read a little bit of code. You can make small contributions, but it takes probably years to get to the point where you are very comfortable making big decisions by yourself.
Right. Okay, so I was about to ask you if the person, for example, is able to code on Rust using Rust, how much time he'll need, but you're more or less answering my questions. So Bitcoin is complex. I mean, that's what I mean, the additional technology that is supporting Bitcoin to scale up is more complex, maybe. Or this is kind of an assumption from my end. However, I cannot code on anything. And but you say, so if I dedicate time on first learning a language, and then so getting introduced technically into Bitcoin, I will be able to compete with you after 5 years. This is best case scenario.
I don't know about the time, but yeah, I think just learning how to code, if you like do that full time, like you only do that every day, you spend 8-10 hours or more potentially just doing that. I think in a few months you can write code, you can make things work, but the problem is that I don't think it's enough. Or I mean, if you are in a larger team, that's maybe enough because the other members of the team more experienced, they can help you out. But yeah, I think it takes a lot longer to get to the point where basically you're confident that you won't screw up and lose people money.
All right. Thank you, Alekos. And the other project that you are working on is the magical Bitcoin.
Yes.
What is this? I said, is this Luca Vaccaro?
Yes.
This is Luca Vaccaro. What is
so basically?
Please.
Actually, what is now BDK, it was originally called Magical Bitcoin. So the original like code was called Magical Bitcoin.
Okay.
And then it was rebranded.
Okay. It was
mainly because I wanted.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I wanted a more like serious name. So Magical Bitcoin was kind of a joke. It was fun, but I don't think it was a good name for like a serious project. So this is why it was rebranded. This is still up with some other stuff some other projects that I was working on that are kind of related to Bitcoin stuff, but that are not specifically part of Bitcoin Dev Kit. And this website is actually very, very old, so I don't think we've updated it in a while. So yeah, basically the Magical Bitcoin is still up, and it's like a collection of other kind of Bitcoin related projects, but not the main BDK one. And those have been moved under the Bitcoin Dev Kit organization.
Okay, got it. And Alekos, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I have seen also something with Kraken. You have been also involved in a project with Kraken, if I'm not mistaken. This has happened several months.
Not really directly, but basically the grant I was awarded from Brink, the money they're giving me come from Kraken. So basically, I don't have any direct contact with them, but Kraken made a donation to Brink, and Brink gave me a grant, and those money come from Kraken. So this is why it was kind of related, but I never like work with them directly or anything.
Right. Okay, cool. And the other thing I was about to ask you, I know in the past you were involved in a project called RGB. Back in 2020, actually, one of my first episodes was with Olga Ukolova. So I have, but my knowledge was not on the expected level, and I was really not able to ask most probably very detailed questions about RGB. I know there are developers who are working on it, but what was your contribution connected to this project?
I mean, I haven't really contributed all that much to the current like design of RGB. Basically, RGB was started many years back. It was originally an idea from I think Giacomo Zucco, Peter Todd, probably Riccardo Casatta as well. A lot of people from the HP network. I think the original idea started even before I joined. I think I joined in like 2017 or 2018. So even before I joined, that was the first idea for RGB. Then nobody, like the project kind of died. Nobody moved it forward or anything. Then I started doing that again when I was working on SBHP network. I think in 2018, 2019, I basically put all the pieces together from what was left from the original design and added my own stuff. But then after a while, I left to work at Blockstream. So it was kind of an half made. It was not a complete project. It wasn't working. It was just still kind of a proof of concept. And when I was at Blockstream, another team took over the project, which is basically the team that you were mentioning before with Maxim, Olga. And they, over time, they've basically thrown everything away and redo everything from scratch. So the RGB, the problem is that it never changed the name. So if you say RGB, you can refer to RGB of today and RGB of 3 years ago, but they are very different things. So the things I worked on mostly was were the RGB stuff from 3 years ago, but now they don't really exist anymore. The RGB of today, it's much more ambitious. So what I was, or we were trying to do was just a very simple protocol to send assets on Bitcoin. RGB today is like smart contract stuff, much more complex. I haven't really followed a lot of the development, so I can't talk about it all that much myself. But yeah, I just want to say the RGB that exists today maybe conceptually comes from what I built myself with help of a lot of other people 3 years ago, but now it's a completely different thing.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Alekos. I was just curious to know, because I'm not capable to. I'm on this on all Telegram chats, but I am not capable to follow all of the technicalities that are being discussed, and I don't understand that much. So is there something that is like a priority for you this year? We've been experiencing some kind of pandemic that I believe did not impact your job, just because your job is always on chain, and it's not being affected by any viruses, nor Trojan horses or donkeys. So is there something like a priority or something to do that you've realized that you want to do, like a project, something that I'm just trying to take some spicy news from you, if you have any for me. If not, just be honest as usual.
I mean, I always have a lot of like side projects in mind. Most of the time I just start building them, and then for some reason they don't work, or I just drop them and forget about them. I think one thing I've been trying to do recently, I'm trying to build, but again, not really like a product. It's not something that I'm planning to release, or at least not soon, mostly for myself. I've been trying to do some hardware stuff, basically designing what I think could be a cool design for an hardware wallet, basically, or something that will be kind of comparable to another wallet. So that's maybe something that eventually could come out, but I don't know. The first thing is I just want to learn myself to do hardware stuff. So I like to learn by doing projects, doing stuff. So I'm doing this project.
Do it yourself.
Yeah,
Seed
for
signer.
myself.
I have had Seed signer, and he was explaining to me about his do-it-yourself wallet, which, by the way, I see it's going very well recently. And also Valerio Vaccaro, he is very well. I cannot assess people who, but I mean, because I know that I'm interviewing only the best people, so I'm taking it by default that it is like that. So so for sure, software and hardware wallet. So you have proven yourself in the software part right now. I'm sure you can do it also in the hardware part.
Yeah, but this is just like kind of a side project. I mean, the main focus is still BDK and moving forward with that. So I do it like mostly on my free time, or yeah, it's not like I'm focusing 100%
Right.
of that. And I don't know, maybe I will make a prototype and it will not work and I will never work on it again, or maybe it will work and I publish it. I don't know. So this is potentially something that's gonna come, but many months ahead, not really soon.
I wish you lots of luck with this, because I'm sure if you start something, you're going to finish it. And you've already had so many experience. You've gathered all this experience these years, and I'm sure you're going to invest your power and energies in the right projects. So, okay, Alekos, I really would like once again to thank you for this time and the conversation. It is a very big pleasure to talk to Alekos Filini. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thanks.